Great. Well, thank you, Lindsay. I want to welcome everybody to the presentation today. Hopefully, I'm up here in snowy Utica today, and so hopefully it's a little bit nicer where all you are, but it's a good day to be thinking about cut flowers and thinking about farmers markets and when it's finally going to get nice and warm out again. So we are first going to be talking about kind of the logistics and kind of the how behind like cut flowers at farmers markets. I hope that everyone will feel comfortable to ask questions at any point. Please feel free to use the chat, and we will take breaks every little bit to get to all your questions. So as Lindsay said, my name is Laura Biasillo. I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension of Broome County as their Ag Economic Development Specialist. I also sit on the board of the Farmers Market Federation of New York and have been working to support farmers markets and farmers market vendors for almost my entire 17 years that I've been in Extension. So today, we're really going to try to talk about 6 things before I hand it over to my co-presenter for today. So first, we're going to be talking about kind of who are those people that you're going to find at the farmers market. We're going to talk a little bit about displays and about kind of what people see at a farmers market. We're going to talk about risk management and how folks are typically looking to pay for things at a farmers market. We're going to talk about permits and licenses, and then we're going to talk a little bit about telling your story. So what I wanted to kind of kick things off with is, meeting who those players or folks are at the farmers market. So we have farmers market management. That could be a manager. It could be an events person. It could be folks that are on a board of directors. It could be that manager could be paid, or they could be a volunteer. There could be folks that are dealing with different aspects of that farmers market, whether it's what's happening on the day of the market or what's leading up to that day of the market. But all of those folks have a hand in what's kind of how that market is managed. They're looking at the rules and the regulations and setting up events and really making sure that that market on a weekly basis operates like a well-oiled machine. Then you have the customers. Those are the folks that you're looking to appeal to with your products. They'll come from all walks of life. They're looking for all different types of, options and opportunities. And then there's those stakeholders, those folks that are in the community that support the farmers market, whether that's financially, whether that's through use of space, whether that is the fiscal sponsor for the farmers market, so they're able to actually operate. And those folks often will have opinions and thoughts about how the farmers market maybe should be running. So my question to all of you now, and I kind of gave it away a little bit with my pictures, but I'd love to know what products that you are currently selling at the farmers market, or what you're thinking about selling at the farmers market. So folks want to open up the chat, and then we'll just kind of see what everyone is doing or what you're hoping to do. All right, great. So Carla's going to do dried flowers. I think that's great. Jenny Hines focuses on cut flowers, houseplants, seed starts, and hand-woven pot holders. Tira is flower and veggie seedlings, cut flower bouquets. Tom focuses on bouquets and sunflower stems. Jen Miller, cut flower and eggs. Great. So what we start to see, even from folks that are brave enough to kind of put something into the chat, is that it really will run the gamut in terms of what you are interested in doing, what you have the capacity to do, and maybe even what you think that those folks that might be at that farmers market might be interested in. So, oh, sorry, folks, I'm trying to navigate a bunch of boxes here and it's not working out for me. Okay, so next. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about that, and I think all of you really kind of hit that nail on the head, what I want to move to now is thinking about, how you're going to be displaying those products, or what you could consider in terms of displays, because we know that folks eat with their eyes, right? Or consume, that's really what we see. That's our first perception of things. So, how folks see that you're packaging those flowers or products or seedlings or transplants, that's really kind of how they're going to decide how they feel about your product. It could be the most amazing thing, but if it doesn't look very well put together, then it's really, it's not going to be it's not going to give the perception that you want. So I did a quick Google search of what we might see in terms of cut flower displays at farmers markets, just to show all of the different varieties that we have here. So you can see everything from bouquets that are kind of prepackaged in that wax paper that are inside those bulb containers. You can see them inside those metal kind of mini bathtub type things. You can see individual stems that are inside those 5-gallon buckets, and you can see bouquets that are inside mason jars or some other type of scenario. And my reason for showing this is because there's not one way that's going to work the best necessarily. What you want to do is that you want to look at what's going to work for the type of product that you're looking to do. What kind of display do you have available to you, or what could you use for display? And the other thing I want to point out is that a lot of these, or the ones that really look much more inviting, have multiple layers or multiple kind of steps to them. So they're not something that's flat. But for example, if you look in either the upper right or the upper left-hand corner, what you'll see is things that are on multiple layers. So it draws your eye in. You're looking across and up and down to see all of these different colors and options and opportunities. And so that's what you want to think about when you're thinking about display. Is it's not necessarily just that thing that you're putting it in, but look at it from that customer's perspective. Like, back up from your table and say, does this look inviting? Would this draw me in? Is this really showcasing my product in the best way possible? So for example, those long stem, by the stem items that you might be selling, single stem, if it's a longer stemmed product, then you want to have it in something that's really hiding most of that stem and is just showing off the flower, as opposed to having a vase where what they're seeing is mostly the stem. So those are just some things to consider as you think about that. And that really goes more into that perception is reality, because when folks are looking at these pictures, what they're seeing is really what your farm is all about. It's really inviting them to come in. It's showing them what they're purchasing, how they can purchase it. And so also what you see here is like a wide variety of signs, like how people are advertising their products and showing how much their products are worth. So those are also things to consider. Like when you're at that farmer's market, folks don't want to have to ask questions about how much is something worth, or sorry, how much does something cost, or what exactly is this? They don't want to feel stupid. So when you have those, when you're thinking about signage with your display, you want to be very upfront to make sure that people know, like, what is it that they're buying? So what type of flower is it? Maybe you can even talk about, how it needs to be kept or stored. But don't leave any of those questions up to chance, because if the customer has to ask too many questions, then they won't buy from you. They'll just pass on to the next place. So I wanted to talk a little bit about customer service at the market, and things that kind of frustrate or annoy customers, because I think from a customer perspective, like, we can all understand and identify with these things, but I think it's important to revisit, because we may just not see it from their perspective sometimes, of like, well, I just came from the greenhouse, of course I might have a little bit of dirt on me, or I might have this thing that's going on, but that's not how they see it. So when it comes to your own display, what you look like at the farmers market, you want to think about being neat and clean. You don't want to be eating behind your stand. You don't want to be smoking behind your stand. If we all need to eat, we all need to go to the bathroom, but bring somebody else with you to the farmers market so that you're able to go take those bio breaks and walk around and do what you need to do. You want to be neat and clean. Nobody wants to buy something from somebody that looks like they were digging in the dirt and couldn't be bothered to wash their hands afterwards. And just having that uniform look, meaning, like, if you have a farm name and a farm logo, do you have t-shirts or hats or something that might have that farm logo on it so that folks know that, who you all are, they understand that you're a farm. It can start to identify with that piece. There are really there are top five things that are just really annoying for farmers market customers that I think are important to consider. So the first is when vendors might make or take phone calls while serving customers. So again, we think about that from our own perspective. If we were walking up to a store, we're walking up to buy something, and the person that we're trying to purchase from is on the phone, taking calls, making calls, it really seems like maybe they're too busy for us, they don't care. It gives an appearance of just not engaging with customers. If vendors are talking too long with other customers while you're waiting to pay in line. Now, this is not to say that as somebody that's selling at the farmer's market that you don't want to form those relationships with those customers, that you don't want to be talking with them about their family, about what's going on, about the flowers, or, how they can use them. But there's a fine balance between using it too long and then if somebody has to wait too long, then they will not stay and they'll just go somewhere else. So then the next thing is if you have a long line. So if you know that your stuff is going to be popular, then you're going to want to either bring somebody else with you, consider what it is that you're going to be doing. People don't want to wait in line. You wouldn't want to wait in line, so you want to figure out a system for doing that. Similar to that, if you don't acknowledge a waiting customer. So it's very easy to, make eye contact with those folks that are waiting and say, hey, I see you. I'll be with you in just a second. Do you have any questions? Feel free to, check out what's going on. But if you aren't acknowledging those customers that are waiting, then again, they're going to feel like they're not valued, you're not valuing them. And so then they're going to move on to somebody else. And then finally, the last one is if vendors cannot make change. And so that's just something that we all just want to think about, especially if we have kids or grandkids or others that might be helping us, that we want to make sure that that is going to be something that folks aren't going to have to wait around for. So, oh, goodness, I apologize. All right, so before we dive into the risk management piece of selling at farmers markets, I just wanted to take a quick break and see if folks had any questions or any experiences that you wanted to share. Maybe something that's happened to you at the farmers market. All right, great. I think folks are digesting everything, so that's totally fine. So what I wanted to just talk a little bit now is risk management at the farmers market. And, that's something that often can be a little bit off-putting when you look to start to sell at a farmers market, and then the market manager might say to you, that's great, we'd really love you to come and participate, but we're going to need proof of product liability insurance. Maybe we might need proof of some other types of insurance. And you might be thinking, why? What's the point? I'm selling flowers. I don't need insurance. And so what I want to just let all of you know is that, insurance really should be considered a cost of doing business, especially with something like cut flowers. If you are, for example, selling those cut flowers in a glass vase, what happens if, someone walks away from your stand and they drop that glass vase and it ends up cutting them, or they step on the glass and they hurt themselves, or maybe you're selling something that maybe has thorns or something that might, hurt somebody unintentionally, of course. But if you are in farming, you likely have farm insurance. And so adding that product liability insurance is an easy add-on, and it's something that most farmers markets in New York will require from you. And so, it should just be something that you just do. And you can talk to your insurance provider about it, but really the idea is that we live, unfortunately, in a very litigious society. And so a big part of it is protecting yourself, protecting your farm, and really thinking about it from that perspective. So as I said, it's about protecting yourself, because if something were to happen, somebody decided to sue you and you didn't have insurance, or that farm insurance or a certain level of insurance, they could take your home, you could lose your farm. These are, of course, worst case scenarios, but nobody wants to be in a lawsuit either. And then finally, it's going to be helpful to protect that farmers market as well. So following that up, I just want to think a little bit about how you mitigate your risks at the farmers market, right? Because some might think I just used a huge scare tactic to just make you go out and buy some insurance, and I'm not an insurance salesman. I have nothing to do with farm insurance. But, I would love if folks just wanted to brainstorm a little bit, and I'll kind of kick it off with how you might mitigate your risk at the farmers market doing the types of products that you're thinking about doing. And so one example might be how you're packaging your flower arrangements, or thinking about what it is that you're doing with that. What are some other ideas that folks might have in terms of how you could potentially mitigate your risk selling cut flowers or other types of horticultural products at the farmers market? Oh, Jenny had a great recommendation. She's a former claims adjuster from Nationwide Insurance. Stay away from flowers that are poisonous. Yes. Signage to include any danger to pets or animals. Yes, that would be great. All very good things. Clear space without tripping hazards around your booth. That's a good idea, Sarah. Safe movement through your setup spot. Yes, Jess, that's a great idea. Miranda recommended not using glass. Yep, that's also a really great idea. Jenny Hines wraps in paper and uses small horse feed buckets to keep the flowers in. Yeah, that's a great idea. I love the creative use of, how you're going to kind of keep stuff together. All right, so these are all some great ideas. So I hope folks are taking notes, because these are all definitely things you can think about implementing this year. So I wanted to talk a little bit about different methods of payment, because when we sell at the farmers market, we want to try to be as inclusive as possible. And so some of you mentioned that you're selling vegetable transplants or transplants of some type. And so I do just want to remind folks that if you are selling those types of items, that you are actually eligible for SNAP, to accept SNAP at a farmer's market, because those products will create food. So that is eligible for SNAP. So it is another potential income stream to be considering and thinking about, as long as your farmer's market, the farmer's market you participate in, will accept SNAP benefits. Jess mentioned you can get free floral buckets from Aldi's, and I'm not sure who WM is, but she can, Walmart. Perfect, thank you. The other things to consider is that, depending on the price points for your products, it is a good idea to consider accepting credit card. It's usually the most common method that folks are doing is easy to download on your phone as an app. They will give you the credit card swiper for free, and then you're just paying the transaction fee each time. As I said, it is something to consider because depending on how pricey your things are and if you want to make it convenient for folks, when they come to the farmer's market, they might not bring that much cash, but folks always have their card with them. And then, of course, accepting cash. So those are just things to consider because you want to try to have yourself as open as possible to all different types of folks who may be using all different sets of currency. So now I want to spend just a few minutes on permits and licenses. So there are two sets of permits and licenses that you need to be considering. The first would be from New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, Division of Plant Industry. And then the second is New York State Sales Tax. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into these right now. And so first, most of you, if you do not have the nursery grower license, then that is the one that you're going to want to look to do because you're growing plant material intended for sale. As a nursery grower, you're also permitted to purchase and resell plant material under the same license. The grower license is $200 for 2 years. So it also involves an inspection from your local regional inspector from Ag and Markets, who just comes out and tours your facility where you're growing your greenhouse or your fields if you're doing field grown, and really just make sure that you're meeting the rules and requirements. And so I didn't.
I have a question, Laura.
Yes, please.
Is that just that's for things that are planted in soil? The nursery license,
meaning not like hydroponically grown.
That this is if you're seeing a plant, like hostas or something. For cut flowers, you don't need a license.
Yeah, you were breaking up there, but I think what I got from you is the delineation between if you're selling like a potted item or if it's like a flower that's being harvested and then not sold with its roots.
If cut flowers and it's not in, it's not a potted license, but it's license when it comes down to a potted plant.
Yep. And I think I heard somebody looking to chime in on that as well.
So what if you're growing something in a greenhouse? Would that count in a pot?
So I think that the question to consider is like, go ahead, Lindsay.
So if you go, an example would be is if you go into here, Walmart is an example, is they would have to have a nursery grower's license or they'd have a dealer's license. Smaller stores that you pick up, your mom's from and everything, they have a nursery license. But if you're growing flowers that are just bouquets, they're already out of the soil, you don't need a license at all.
But I'm not sure about actually growing the flowers though. Like that's where I'm like,
you don't need a license to grow flowers at all.
Yeah. So, oh goodness. I got too many boxes popping up now. So it really just depends on and this is why I wanted to put this in, because if folks are doing more than cut flowers and you're doing like those veggie transplants or, mums or other things like that as, additional income streams, then this is something that you do have to be aware of. So the second piece is New York State sales tax. So you must collect sales tax. So the first piece is that you have to register with New York State as a sales tax vendor. You're going to do your filing annually as long as you would owe less than $3,000 in sales tax in any given year, and they will fine you if you don't file. So you really need to make sure that you're filing, and you will do that online using the ST 101. And I did go on to the website to look through this, and it's all everything is listed there, like all the files and the forms and kind of the instructions and walking through what's going to go in each of the boxes. So it is pretty it's pretty straightforward, but the takeaway for folks is that you have to register as a sales tax vendor online and you have to file annually, because if you don't, then they will fine you, and nobody wants to get a fine from New York State. I wanted to just move now into kind of telling your story. But before you do that, I wanted to just see if any folks had any questions on the pieces that we did just kind of talk about in terms of risk management, permits and licenses and that piece of things. All right, great. Well, while folks are thinking about it, I will kind of move on to this next piece, which is about, you all telling your story. And so we know it's really important to tell your story about the farm, about the products, about, kind of why folks would want to purchase these products. And, flowers are so beautiful. They can kind of tell their own story. They don't even need any words. But we want to try to take good pictures. So, the two social media platforms that folks are really using for this type of endeavor is Facebook or Instagram. It really just depends on, if you're doing more just pictures, then you definitely want to be on Instagram. If you were doing something where you felt like Facebook was a better platform, they are also owned by the same company now. So you can, post on Instagram and it will post directly to your Facebook page. But if you're not doing something currently, just pick one and work on that, and then you can decide if you want to add another one in. And then, as I said, taking good pictures is really important. It's an art, I think, rather than a science in my mind. But with flowers, we're all really lucky. They'll tell the story for us. So I just grabbed these from a vendor that we have at our farmers market that does cut flowers, and just to kind of show what some pictures could look like, of, both cut flower bouquets, but then also these like dried flower kind of wintry tablescapes that could be used during the holiday season, that I think is just a really great use of kind of different floral items that, sometimes folks might not think about. So, along with photos, what I just want to say is that I think that we all have phones now that have really great cameras. So, we just want to take advantage of that when you're out in the fields growing, taking some quick snapshots of, when things are growing, or, just grabbing something out of the field and, taking a great picture. Those are things that, folks want to see. They want to see what is it looking like on your farm. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to just find out from folks a sense of like where you're finding resources for selling at a farmer's market, for doing cut flowers. Obviously Lindsay and Carla are an amazing resource, and the group that they have going on. But for all of you, where do you maybe still have questions, or where would you be looking to find additional resources? Oh, great. So great, Jess recommended there's a Facebook group for cut flower growers in upstate New York. So that's wonderful. I'm sure many of you are on that group, but if you're not, then someone can quickly pop that into the chat. Jenny Marks recommended a group that I suspect is some national organization for cut flower growers. Thank you, Jenny. Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers. Yes. So I think my one thing I would recommend as well is that there's the Farmers Market Federation of New York, and that's really the membership organization for farmers markets and farmers market vendors across the entire state of New York. It's free to join, and it's a really great resource for folks that are looking to either sell at a farmers market, be involved in any aspect of how a farmers market is being run or managed. And so they're a really great resource as well. They're online. And so I can definitely pop their website into the chat right now. I believe that's it. So with that, I wanted to just ask, I saw there was a question in the chat, and Carla, you or Lindsay can chime in, or maybe Lindsay, you were doing that to Jess privately, but Jess had a question. If she plans to sell dahlia tubers or the dahlia roots, she's just wants to get clarification on needing the ag permit, and then when she might get inspected this summer or next winter before shipping them. So I think that's a good question, because we do have to think about the seasonality of all of these pieces.
Know what this is. Is I believe you're going to need to get inspected, but I'm going to double check and see if I can get an email back by the end of our phone, at the end of this presentation. But if you do need to get inspected, so I have a greenhouse license, nursery greenhouse license for my farm, and I applied in January, and I think within like 2 or 3 weeks, an inspector showed up at my property, and they did they came to do the initial inspection before giving a lease that, and he just kind of stops by when he's in the area. I usually don't but I've told him, like, it's fine, just go down, check out the greenhouse and see what's growing, and if everything's okay, just let me know. So it's an easy inspection, it's an easy application, it's it's $100 for 2 years, and the inspectors are really nice, and they're wonderful to talk to and ask questions.
Lindsay, I have a question. When you renew, do they need to do another inspection, or is it just automatic?
It's just automatic.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, one thing that happened to me this year when I renewed is I lost my certificate for some reason. I put it somewhere. So I emailed the office, and I think they got back to me within like probably half an hour with a copy via email, and they sent one in the mail. So the office is really efficient. Great to work
that's
with.
good to know. That's great. Because the community garden that I run, we occasionally sell our surplus seedlings. So we got a nursery license 2 years ago. And it's the owner of the property who has the nursery license. And I have no idea if he renewed it or not. So maybe I could just call the office and find out. I don't even know if he knows.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I see
And
Jeff
if
wants
you
to know. Oh, go ahead.
If you need like the director's email, let me know. So I usually goes to him, and then somebody in the office responds back. So
Good.
All right, great. So I know that was a little bit fast and furious, but I think it's always better to actually hear from somebody that's doing it. So I gave you all kind of a little snapshot of things to consider and considerations. And then I want to pass it over to our next presenter, who will be able to talk about kind of actually what it looks like at the farmers market. So with that, I will bounce it back to Carla and Lindsay, and thank you to all of you for logging on today and listening and being willing to engage and participate.